Imagine if your favorite software gets banned in your country tomorrow because of some geopolitical problems. For example, if you are doing business in Hong Kong and Microsoft gets banned, what would you do if you could not use Word or Teams? And there are examples of this. Huawei was banned in the US. X is banned in Brazil. Can open source software protect us from this kind of problem? If you are using open source software, you control it 100%, and no one can take it away from you. I wanted to learn how open source software could change the way we use technology. These are precisely the types of questions we'd love to get answered on the Asia Tech podcast. So we spoke to Peter Mann from Red Hat. Red Hat is a company that provides open source software services to businesses globally, and more than 90% of Fortune 500 companies use open source software with them. Let's talk to Peter now. Thanks so much for coming to the show. Let's jump right into this thing. Talk to me about the perception of digital transformation in Hong Kong today. And for the people that are going through it or feel like they're going through it, what are their primary goals? What are they trying to achieve? What do they think they're getting?
Thank you for the question, Michael. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to the show today.
It's my pleasure.
I would say that for Hong Kong, as of this year, 2024, we are mostly recovering from COVID, but we do have some challenges to tackle and more opportunities to capture going forward in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. First of all, I would like to highlight a few challenges we are facing, since about like 12 months ago. I would say that in Hong Kong, the economy is rebounding, but some industries are seeing new challenges, especially like, retail, shopping, food and beverage, tourism, real estate, and the financial sector are facing different challenges. And regarding the pain points, I would say that, like our financial market, we are facing, a weaker number of IPO, in Hong Kong. And also, the activities in the stock market is kind of like slowing down, recently. And also, as you know, Hong Kong, was used to be a very popular export and import hub for Greater China and also for Asia Pacific. So, how Hong Kong can compete with other ports like near Hong Kong will be a big, question mark that, people need to resolve. And the last point I want to mention for Hong Kong, especially for Hong Kong, is, we are seeing a lot of immigrations out from Hong Kong. People are moving to overseas. Because of different policies, are giving the opportunities for people from Hong Kong to migrate over. So we are seeing a shortage of labor, in Hong Kong, across the industries. So I would say that, for the current state of digital transformation in Hong Kong, it's not just about time to market. We talk about time to market for digital transformation before, but now for the specific situation in Hong Kong, I would say that Hong Kong need to capture a bigger customer base and also think about how to expand our markets. When we are talking about expanding the markets, I would want to mention that, the markets, I would classify the markets, in three areas. The first one is Greater Bay Area. Not sure, Michael, you are familiar with GBA, Greater Bay Area. It is actually the South China Bay Area, the region, including the few major cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Macau, in South China. This is a very big market with over 80 million population, much bigger than Hong Kong.
And a huge government initiative.
Yeah, it's a huge government initiative. Yeah, they wanted to make this region very internationalized, more outgoing, facing the international. Okay.
Is Shenzhen in there as well?
Yeah, Shenzhen is in there as well. Yeah, right. Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and Macau. Yep, the four big ones. Yeah.
So, can I ask you this? What is the implication for this big focus by the Chinese government on this area that has 80 million people in it, the Greater Bay Area, right? That has manufacturing, that has finance, that has sourcing. They're trying to make this into almost like a Silicon Valley of Asia in a way, right? And it's got this huge population. They named it the Greater Bay Area, kind of like the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, right, in San Francisco.
Exactly.
What is the implications for that on Hong Kong? For someone like I am, who's been in Asia for 30-something years, Hong Kong has always appeared to us as like this financial hub that's going to have this massive benefit from being associated with one of the fastest growing economies in the world? What are we missing?
Okay, great question, Michael. So I would say that Greater Bay Area means a lot, not just to China, but also for Hong Kong. The reason I said that is because, like as you said, Hong Kong used to be like the financial hub,
Yeah.
for Asia Pacific. It is the international facing city. But of course, as China is also evolving, and we have like, EVs and a lot of like, technologies that are exporting to the outside world, we see the importance to have a bigger market, a bigger anchor point for the rest of the world to interface with China. But for Hong Kong, I would say that fortunately and unfortunately, of course, we are like the dragon head for GBA because of our history and experience, and we have been dealing with our international customers for many years.
Yeah.
But also, it is a challenge to Hong Kong because whether Hong Kong will have the advantage compared to other like bigger cities, like Shenzhen and Guangzhou, they probably have even a bigger market population, compared to Hong Kong. So whether Hong Kong can remain the dragon head, in Greater Bay Area, this is something that for Hong Kong government and for us, living in Hong Kong, that need to think about.
Do you think this is a purposeful thing by the government to try to diminish the status of Hong Kong?
I won't say diminish, but I want to say that they want to make a bigger Hong Kong. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So they want to have like, as you say, the Bay Area, like, like Silicon Valley or the Tokyo Bay Area. We have to have a number of, big enough population and also, industry all across the board to become a real, important hub, around the world. So I think Hong Kong alone, we only have like 7 million population.
Right,
compared to
small.
the rest of Bay Areas we talk about, it is not enough, as a hub. Okay, I would say that GBA is a very good initiative, not just for China, but for Hong Kong, for the opportunity for us to influence the rest of Greater Bay Area to make, the area, the international hub for the whole world. Yeah.
It feels like it. So going a little bit further, right? What is the impact not just on Hong Kong of GBA and this sort of connection? Like if you said that Hong Kong is the dragon head, it remains the dragon head. What's the impact on the rest of Asia, on the rest of Asia Pacific for all the stuff that's happening there?
I see. Okay, thanks for the question again, Michael. Very good one. I think this is the longer term impact is, as I understand that, Michael, you are based in Singapore, so you probably know Singapore. Sorry.
I spent a lot of time in Singapore, so I know a lot about it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Hong Kong used to compete with Singapore a lot.
I was going to bring this up. Like when I first came to Asia in 1990, I hate to date myself, there was this ongoing argument, and I was thinking about this before you and I were speaking, but there was this ongoing argument of, right, which of these little island nations, right, because that's how we looked at Hong Kong before the handover in 97, right,
Yep.
are going to be the gateway to China, because both of them are Chinese speaking. One is Cantonese, one's Mandarin, but still speaking Chinese, right? So definitely can communicate easily culturally with the mainland of China. And then at some point, some bit flipped where it just felt like Singapore just like went into overdrive and Hong Kong kind of stagnated a little bit.
Yep.
Is that fair?
I would say that unfortunately this is a fair statement because of a lot of reasons, mostly because of COVID, because we have a shutdown policy for the city, and we are among the last one, in the region to open up.
I remember.
That create a little challenge for us, to catch up and to rebound from the COVID. But I would say that Hong Kong will remain, our advantages, in the longer run. Why I'm saying that is because, Hong Kong is technically part of China. We are the special administration of China. We still have the common law and everything, and it's a very international city.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think it is good that we still have that advantage with us, and also the proximity to China. And I think going forward, we should continue to play this role. But at the same time, we want to do business with ASEAN countries, not just Singapore, but also the fast-growing ASEAN countries, in Southeast Asia. That is
Right.
another target customer base that Hong Kong is facing. So as you can see, how Hong Kong will compete. Sometimes I would say not just compete, but cooperation and everything. Okay, how Hong Kong and Singapore together can make Asia bigger than the rest of the world. I think that is something that, as two very international city, there's something that I think we should work together instead of competing with each other. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. It's funny, right? Like, I'm not Asian, but boy, sometimes I feel like I am. It's a really interesting thing for me, right? Because I've been here since I was like a kid now, right? I mean, I've been here since I was 24 years old.
Right.
So, and I've never lived anywhere in my life except for here as an adult.
Mm.
So to me, I have a really unique perspective on this. The question about whether Asia is going to be like the driving force for the global economy or for the global anything for the rest of the, in this century is not a question for me and never has been.
Mm.
Where do you see Hong Kong fitting in, though, with Singapore in the context of this expansion into places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, even Vietnam? All these countries are seeing rapid economic growth, big growth in the middle classes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get more associated with them? How do you get into their economies as well?
I think, very good question, Michael. If you compare Hong Kong and Singapore, I think the advantage of Hong Kong is because we have China, as our, on our back. Okay.
Yeah.
China has a large number of, industries and also manufacturing that are, the world factory for a lot of things.
Yeah.
For the Asian country, there's a lot of things that, they are importing from China. From Singapore, Singapore is more like, the middleman of everything. And they are doing a very good job at, on that. And
They
of
are.
course, they are closer to the ASEAN country. But if the ASEAN country are going to do business with China, there's a lot of reason why they want to use Hong Kong as the middleman, because
Yeah.
of a lot of reason that, because we understand, how China function and, how they should do business with China. I think, it is a safer bet, to deal with Hong Kong, if you want to get into China and vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about Hong Kong that has always been great is the existence of English law, right? And I don't say, and it's so hard to explain this to people that don't understand how the region works. I don't mean because the law is written in English.
Mm-hmm.
I mean because it's based on the law of England.
Right.
And it's just easier for people to understand it because it's been around for a lot longer, rather than setting up your headquarters in Shanghai or in Shenzhen or in Guangzhou. You set it up in Hong Kong, and then you understand like the governance around your company's corporate governance, right? So it makes it so much easier.
Exactly.
And the strategic closeness, like you said, the proximity to China makes dealing with China just 1,000 times easier because you're there, right? So getting there is easier and stuff like that.
Right.
But you're right. Working in conjunction with Singapore gives you a whole bunch of other service capabilities that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have that you can then add on to that.
Right.
And because again, the communication and culture is similar, it makes that easier too.
Exactly.
Can we talk about why, like, let's be a little bit more specific about open source and about Red Hat, right? Like, where does that fit in as a strategic solution for Hong Kong, particularly in the context of all the things we've already been discussing?
Yep. I love this question, Michael. Open source is so important for Hong Kong these days. Let me explain to you why.
Okay.
Because, as you know, geopolitical conflicts are like happening all around the world.
Yeah.
And in Hong Kong, we are in the middle of the US-China, I would say, cooperation, competition, conflict that are escalating daily. Things are quite sensitive these days, and how to position us, the enterprises, politically correct, to operate in this region is becoming a big challenge for Hong Kong.
Okay.
So I would say that, in Hong Kong, we see more customers are considering IT solution from China, like Chinese make solution, because of security and political reason. And you can see US are doing the same thing. They are banning some Chinese company, IT company, on their solution that they don't allow the government to use some of the Chinese make solution. So this kind of things is becoming more very political, I would say. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Huawei used to sell a ton of phones in the United States, and now they sell zero, right? And that's only, I think, because of political consideration. But please go ahead.
and also the drones and also those kind
Yeah.
of things are all becoming very sensitive.
DJI.
Yeah, DJI. Yeah, but
Yep.
I have to say, IT is a universal language.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to pick a solution just based on where it is made or developed, because a lot of technologies are actually the origin is from everywhere. It's not just from one country.
Right.
So how do you juggle this kind of political concern? And also, if we are isolating ourselves, using just solution from one specific country or area, we will advance much slower than the rest of the world.
Right.
That is what we don't want to see in Hong Kong, and also the enterprise will suffer at the end.
Yeah.
That's why I said, open source is the way to go, for Hong Kong, because, open source, we can provide a safe, secure, and reliable solution for our local customer. For Red Hat, even though we are registered in US, but as we have an operation in Hong Kong, it is our duty to provide a very safe and secure solution for our customers. Okay, this is no question. We cannot hurt our local customer. But at the same time, how Red Hat as an open source company can free the customer from any geopolitical concern or issue that may arise anytime. Okay, and go back to open source. Why open source is the best bet for Hong Kong?
Yeah.
First of all, number one, I think it is 100% transparent. For open source, you can see the source code. You can compile the source code by yourself. Everything is open, transparent, no hidden stuff, no Trojan horses, no backdoors. Okay, and it is by nature very safe for anyone to use.
Yeah.
Okay.
And look, let's be clear about this too. Red Hat has been in the open source business for, I'm going to say, like 25 years now.
More than 30 years.
Almost more than 30 years. Yeah. So they are literally like some of the pioneers in actually taking open source Linux itself originally, right? And then taking it and turning it into a commercial model, right? To be able to do that. But leaving everything open source, you're right, gives it a transparency that other software doesn't have. So if you can't trust the source, at least you have the open source software. And you can say, like, look, I went through all the code. There's nothing in here, right?
Exactly.
Because regular software
if
is
you
just
want
like a
to take
black
time
box,
to do it,
yeah. But regular software is just like a black box. You don't know what's in there because you can't see the source code.
Absolutely, Michael. You're 100% correct. I think that's why by nature, open source software is much safer in terms of security, for our end users. Yeah.
Can I ask you this though? So you mentioned emigration before, right? I'm presuming a lot of this emigration is going to Canada, just because Canada's had a long-standing relationship with Hong Kong, particularly in times of concern. In 1996, a lot of Hong Kong Chinese emigrated to Canada. It's just been a place where it's been easy and a great relationship to do this. But I'm curious about like what the impact is on not just your customers, but the overall economy in Hong Kong for this open source thing, and if other companies will be doing this as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would say that, I think for the second point I want to talk about on open source is, besides that it is 100% transparent.
Right.
The thing that, make open source very safe for like Hong Kong or any customer in any place to use is because open source software is not governed by proprietary end user license.
Right.
Open source software
by definition.
By definition. And also, technically, open source software are governed by open source licenses that guarantee your fundamental of freedom to use and to distribute.
And to change, and to adapt it,
as well. Why this is important, especially in Hong Kong or any other places, because if one day a country is being sanctioned, by another government, they can withdraw your end user license agreement overnight.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, which means that because proprietary software, you are licensed to use, but for open source software, your subscription is for support. It's not the license to use, because by nature, open source software already guarantee your right to use and to distribute the software.
Yeah. Yeah.
So overnight, if we cannot do business with a certain country, we cannot withdraw their right to use. But of course, they may need to find another way to support your software, but it doesn't prevent you to doing that. So this is a loss saver way for your continuity of your business. If you are running open source software, comparing to some proprietary source software that your right of use is being licensed by a company.
So I want to make this point though really clearly, because I think this is actually really important. I want to make sure that people understand this. You said this, but I want to say it even louder.
Sure.
When you buy software, you're buying an end user license.
Mm-hmm.
You're not buying the right to use that software per se. You're buying the right to an end user license. But when you use open source software, you're not buying a license to use the software. You're buying service to help you use that software. So in the case that like something geopolitical happens that you can't control, no one can take that software away from you. They can't stop you from using it, because they may be able to stop you from the service you get,
right. Mm-hmm.
but they can't stop you from using the software. And that's a very nuanced but very big difference, I think. And tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think now, today, more than ever, it's more important than ever to have open source software, because I feel like the world is way more unstable than it's been in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And that means that governments are there's more tension between governments, where before there wasn't that much tension. I think it's cyclical, so sure, it'll go away at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But today, it feels better to have an open source license than it does to have an end user license from a proprietary software giver. Does that make sense?
You are 100% correct, Michael. You got it, correctly.
I think so.
I would say that, the freedom to use is very important. No one can take away your freedom to use. But whether I can support you, or whether you can engage me to support you continually in the future, if something happens, that is the only question mark. Of course, for example, if Red Hat cannot support your open source software anymore, starting tomorrow, you can always find a third party, maybe locally a third party to support you, and they will get the open source version of the patch and everything for you. So you can continue to use the software that you are using, but just without Red Hat to support you. Of course, I would say that a lot of people love Red Hat, and thanks God about that. And we are supporting everyone today. But in case something happens, some black swan event happen, things won't stop your operation. That is the most important thing for our customers here.
Yeah, and look, if I were a company like Red Hat that was providing software and support for software that has open source, I'd spend all day talking about it.
Exactly.
I'd spend all day, every day talking about it.
It's so important this day. And Michael, you're right. A lot of people don't fully understand that until we explain it to them again and again. And now they see the importance of that. And actually, especially for Hong Kong, it is very, very important.
Yeah, it seems so. That's why I wanted to say it explicitly. Mm-hmm. So the elephant in the room today, besides all the geopolitical stuff that's going on, is artificial intelligence. Like, where does this fit in with AI?
Okay, interesting, very interesting. Yeah, everyone is talking about AI. I would say that, why AI becomes so hot a topic today. I would say that Gen AI is a specific area for AI. AI has been around for a long time, Michael.
For sure.
You and me know. Yeah. So, but Gen AI, like starting 2-3 years ago, when ChatGPT released the software, mm-hmm. It is an eye opener.
Yeah,
an eye opener, in the sense of like the personal productivity. Okay, people see that AI really can do something for them. Instead of some something hidden behind the scene, helping enterprise to analyze something or something that is not customer facing. Now you see Gen AI is actually helping you to summarize an article and can answer your question directly and can recognize pattern and also can generate new content based on what it learned. Okay, so this is a game changer, especially for personal productivity.
Yeah.
But I have to usually, I spend a lot of time to tell my customers, enterprise customers, how we should look at this. Okay, personal productivity improvement is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I saw a lot of use cases, very good use cases. For example, now we don't need to have someone to take minutes, in a meeting. AI can do it for you,
Exactly.
Before that, you need a secretary or someone need to, in the meeting, need to do it, But now it can generate all the minutes for you, easily. And also, if you are writing articles like on LinkedIn, it will have an AI engine to help you to correct your content, or like grammar mistakes, those kind of things.
Right.
That is something that as an end user, I'm benefiting from that. It saved me a lot of time and make my work, in higher quality. That I really like that. But for an enterprise, we need to be very careful on this kind of tools, because I see enterprise our enterprise customers are using AI more, more on a specific use cases. Okay, they are not, getting like, this kind of like Gen AI things to replace the secretary or to replace some of the workers, but more on improving some of the use cases. Like Red Hat, we are releasing AI, version of like OpenShift, Linux, and also Ansible Nightspeed. All of these are AI specific upgrade to help our specific use case to do a more intelligent job. That is what enterprises are looking for today, in their environment. Okay, of course,
Yeah.
like some companies are using some of the productivity tools, but I also understand that they are doing it very carefully, because AI is still a very I would say the early stage. Okay, for
Very.
productivity improvement, and also really getting into the enterprise environment, in a big way. But I think for any new emerging technology, open source will always play a role. Like look at Kubernetes
Tell me.
containers. Okay,
Tell me.
yeah, because Kubernetes container, it was originated, as an open source, model. Okay, and then different players are getting into the game. OpenShift happened to be one of the biggest one, and and it proved that the open source model of Kubernetes make it a very very hot topic, in the industry, and a lot of developers are seeing that as the future to deploy their applications. And things are moving from the traditional virtual machine to the container model. We are seeing that happening in the last 7 or 8 years.
Really?
In a big time, this is the future of how to host your applications.
Got
So
it.
so for this kind of new emerging technology, if you can make it open source, things will happen very quickly and innovation will happen very fast. And look at EV, okay, electric vehicle. I always want to use this as an example on how open source can drive things forward, because
Okay.
Tesla is the biggest EV company in the world, and that Tesla has open source all their EV technologies. Okay, so because they have the guts to do it, they are not trying to be like I am the only one that can do this kind of like cost effective and very efficient EV, but they are
Hmm.
willing to open source everything to the outside world. And look at the EV market today. Do you think that they were stupid on doing that, so the other companies can copy their technologies?
No.
I would say yes and no. Okay, the
Yeah,
good
no.
thing is they are building up a very big ecosystem,
Right.
comparing to they are doing it on their own. Okay, and they believe their leadership so well. I would say that, like, I would compare Tesla to Red Hat, because Red Hat is so confident that if you need support on the selected components on open source software, Red Hat is always someone that they will consider.
Right.
Okay, I think Tesla is doing the same thing in EV. Okay, they want to build a big ecosystem to start with, to make sure that EV will become the future, of cars, of
Yeah.
automobile, for the world. And after that, they can show the world that they are the leader in that. And they may lose some market share, but the combined market will be bigger than if they are doing it by themselves and get 100% of it.
Can we make the case, though, that open source is more than just like software? It's a movement and it's a mindset as well, right? So this idea that whether it's Tesla or Red Hat or any other company that's participating in the open source with an open source model, it's a movement, right? It's a way of thinking about how to build software, and the idea of maybe if our services are better, even if all the software is the same, it's better for the world that way. Right. And I think that was the original idea of Linux itself anyway. And sort of Red Hat grabbed that and ran with it faster than anybody else, particularly at the beginning, and now was way further ahead than anybody else in that space. But the idea is more of, like I always say, no one succeeds alone. Right. So even for a small startup or a big company, no company succeeds alone. No individual succeeds alone. Nobody who runs the 100-yard dash trained alone for 15 years. They had a whole team working with them. Every boxer has like a corner team. Like no one succeeds alone. And in this case, the idea is not just, is it smart or stupid to give that software away, but it's the idea of, you know what, maybe if we put it out there, the stuff we're going to get back is going to be better than the stuff we could have developed ourselves. That helps us. It helps all our customers, and it rises the tide for everybody. And that's just better. Is that fair?
Exactly, Michael. You got it right. I think, the most important is if you are doing it all alone by yourself, no matter how big your company is, you are talking about like maybe 1,000, 2,000 people working on a software compared to look at how many contributors in Linux alone. You are talking about like over
millions.
At least active contributors 200,000 easily. It will be bigger than any company who want to develop a software by itself.
Right.
Okay. And also, if everyone can get involved, the interest and the skill set will grow much quicker comparing to you need to do all the marketing yourself. You need to convince people that, your 100, 200 people team, can do everything yourself. And also, another thing, a lot of developers, really welcome is, if everyone can see your source code, they can build things on top of it.
Exactly.
They can contribute things on top of it. Look at some of the software games, people are playing. Okay. If they are open sourcing, I won't say totally open sourcing, but they are opening all the interfaces for people to build things on top of it. Look at the community. The community will become very big because, it is like, the sky the limit. The game, the software game will become like, full of everything and more than any company can input, into the game. So it will become a very big community. And at the end of the day, the originator of the game, of the software will benefit from it.
I want to make a point in a different vertical, right? Just to show you that, like, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I use something called OBS Studio. OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software.
Right.
That's what I use to actually to feed through my camera into this other piece of software using, which is Riverside. And I believe Riverside probably uses the components of OBS. And then, like you said, puts a layer on top of it and then provides services around it, just like Zencaster does, which is another platform that does this.
Right.
Just like Ecamm does, that does the same thing. All these things are built on open source software, and they just keep getting better, faster and faster.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think we need to go back to the comment we made earlier, and that is, I don't think most people who use software understand that still. And the open source software movement has been around for, I'm going to say 50 years, since the 70s, so maybe even longer.
Right.
But boy, there's never been a better time to have it than today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Compared to, because personally, I have been doing open source software since 2004.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah, more than like this year is actually my 20th year in doing open source software. Okay, so I see the changes in the market.
Yeah.
In 2004, I still need to explain to people that, open source software is not free of charge. It's free to use, but not free of charge.
For sure.
Okay, if you need support, from Red Hat, you still need to pay Red Hat. Okay, so we can pay our engineers. So the mindset has become a lot more mature compared to before. Today, a lot of people incline to use open source software compared to proprietary source software if they have a choice. The reason is they know the benefit of open source software, and if you look at like Linux, it has been around for as long as you can imagine. And for some of the proprietary software in the market, some of them came and gone. Okay, for a long time already. Because not enough customer or developers are working on it, and people move on to different things, after, they use the software. But for like software like Linux, it has been like the two biggest open source, operating system you can find in the market today. And
Right. So the interesting thing about Linux, if you don't mind me saying this, and please correct me where I'm wrong, right, is that Unix was a proprietary software developed at AT&T or AT&T Labs. I forget, Bell Labs, like back in the 60s, right? Maybe even earlier, but back in the 60s. And Linus Torvalds said this should be open source. And he literally went out and wrote this thing himself. And the first release of this was, if I remember correctly, was in 1991. So this has been around for 30-something years.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know it really well, Michael. I'm impressed.
Well, I've been thinking about Linux for a long time. Remember, my initial view on Red Hat was, of course, its IPO, right? So because I was in the equity market. So I know about these companies from a different viewpoint, but I've been following Red Hat since like it was born. And remember, when I was at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, we were running our own data centers on the trading floor. And I remember when they started replacing some of the IBM, not the mainframes, but the IBM machines, because they also ran something called Annex. I can't remember, AX. I can't remember what they had a Unix kind of software as well. But we started replacing them with these Linux Blade servers. And it just changed the way we did it. And I think we probably used Red Hat to do it because nobody else was doing it back then. Anyway, that's how long I've been following this.
Exactly. I would say that Red Hat is actually quite lucky in terms of timing. That it become a company, a publicly listed company, because Red Hat started at a time that open source software is still not fully understood by a lot of people. So, but it proved to the world that open source is the way to go for. I would say that not just for software, as you say, for all kinds of technologies that people are working on. I won't say that Red Hat is a total non-profit company. We are not doing things free for the rest of the world, but I think we are opening up opportunities for a lot of people, a lot of developers, a lot of enterprises, and free them from vendor login. As you can imagine, open source software can never lock you in, because you know what we are doing. How can we lock you in? You can always take our source code and do something else and release it yourself without saying that it is Red Hat. Okay, then it is perfectly fine. Okay, so you can actually, if you can make a Michael Linux, tomorrow, and if people trust Michael yourself as a supporter for the Linux operating system, you will get a lot of customers. But
fair enough,
but that is the opportunity, and also that open up a lot of freedom for everyone in the market.
Yeah, it's hard work. Peter, I'm going to thank you for doing this. I really appreciate your time today. Peter Mann, the General Manager for Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Macau at Red Hat. This was an awesome conversation. We should do this way more often. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me.